Alright, you guys, welcome back to the channel. Today we are going to be talking about how do we build a bulletproof evening routine that's going to set up the following day by having a good night's sleep, set us up for a fantastic morning and fantastic day. Let's get into it. So one of the reasons why I want a good evening routine is that a good evening routine sets up our morning, and a good morning routine sets up our evenings. And if we have a good evening and morning routine, we're going to have an awesome day and a good night's sleep. So let's get into what the main reasons are, or sorry, like what the main things are that we want in place to have a good evening routine and how we can use those to leverage better sleep essentially. So one of the main things we want to do is make sure we have a good night's sleep. And how do we do that? It's the things that we do that will help us wind down after our busy day that help us have a good sleep. And when we have that good sleep, it really sets the tone for the coming day. So what we want to do is find ways to help us wind down, relax from that day. Typically what happens is we're quite elevated during the day, whether that's work stress, family stress, whatever kind of stress it is, our nervous system is elevated and we need to try and bring it down to a reasonable level to get to sleep and have a good night's sleep. So we want to try and reduce any stress that we're having, any anxiety, anything that's coming up in our head that's really keeping our mind busy, because we know that's going to play a factor in our night. When we try and go to sleep, we're going to be thinking about all of that stuff. So we want to try and reduce all of that as much as we can. So best ways to do this, you guys, is when you're starting your evening routine, set a timer on your phone or something where it's going to remind you that, hey, it's time for that evening routine. Because one of the biggest things I think we come up against is that we realize, oh crap, it's time to go to bed and it's too late already to really get that whole evening routine in that we want. So when we set a timer, it's a good reminder of like, hey, it's time to start planning for my evening routine. So number one thing is set a timer so that you know, hey, it's time to get started on my evening routine. And what we want to do, number one thing is reduce our exposure to light. So we don't want to be watching TV last thing before we go to bed on our laptop, answering work emails or something like that, or even just watching like some fun YouTube or reading an article, anything like that. It's all going to be artificial light that's coming into our eyes, and our body doesn't know that we're in an environment where we have artificial light, right? So what's happening is that artificial light's coming in and it's telling our body, hey, it's still sunny out, there's still light out, we don't need to start winding down. So that blocks the release of melatonin, which basically melatonin is what's going to set off a cascade of other events that help us fall asleep. So lowering of our body temperature, kind of getting us tired, making us ready to go to bed. So when we put a bunch of light into our eyes, we're blocking that melatonin and we're not setting up our sleep in the best way possible. So that means get away from the electronics best we can. And then also try and either like shut lights off, dim lights, use candlelight, all those sorts of things. If you don't have dimmers, you don't have candles, and you just have regular old light, what the best way to do, or the best thing that we can do then, is just turn a light on in the adjacent room. So turn a light on in the next room over and be in this room and let that light come in so it's not as bright a light and not as direct for us. And that will act essentially as a dimmer or like limit the amount of light that we're having. So that's number one, disconnect from that technology, get away from the screens, get away from the light. Next one is to just basically like start some sort of a self-care practice, whether that's stretching for you, if that's meditation, reading, having a cup of tea, maybe it's going for an evening walk with your family, whatever it is for you, journaling, gratitude work. Those are all really important things to have, and what they do is like they help us wind down and relax, and it's that self-care practice so that we're taking care of ourselves. I don't think we give ourselves enough time for that typically, so when we give ourselves a little bit more time for that stuff, it really does go a long way for the coming days and weeks. It all starts to pile up, that daily reflection on, hey, what are my goals right now? What am I grateful for? What's stressing me? Like getting all that stuff out, whether that's on paper, if just meditating and you're just like letting it all go for a little bit and trying to really down-regulate your body. All of those things are beneficial. Reading is a great one because it gets you away from the screens. Get a physical book, read it, read something that you're interested in, whether that's maybe that's a self-help book, maybe that's totally just like a sci-fi book about who knows what. Pick something that you're going to enjoy reading as well so that it's not a struggle for you. Grab that book and use that as part of your evening routine. I do love the piece of like having dinner, then going for a walk with your family or yourself. I think it's good to just get that nice little bit of extra movement in. I don't think most of us get enough of that. Most of the time, we're sitting at a desk all day. So when we can get those extra steps in, that's a fantastic way to do it. And if we go for a walk right after we eat, it's going to help with our insulin sensitivity a little bit, just because, and our digestion too. Just because we're going to be moving right after we are eating instead of going and sitting on the couch or something watching TV. And that kind of leads into that next piece with the evening routine, you guys, is you don't want to have super heavy meals in the evening because your body's going to be like busy digesting all of that food after that. So try and aim for lighter meals in the evening and stay away from like really sugary stuff, lots of carbohydrates in the evening. It does help your sleep. Other things that we want to be avoiding in the evening is alcohol. I know a lot of people will have one drink as like a nightcap, so to speak. That's something that we definitely want to avoid. Even if we feel like it makes us sleep better, it doesn't. Research has shown that as little as one alcoholic drink is going to affect the quality of your sleep. So skip the drink and just let those days compile of you getting a little bit better sleep, and that will help bring down your stress levels that you're maybe having that nightcap for. And then other thing, you guys, obviously caffeine is a big one. So there's something called your half-life of the caffeine. So that's how long it takes for your body to metabolize half of the caffeine. So what we want to do is be cutting caffeine off by like 1 or 2 in the afternoon. I would say absolute latest if you metabolize coffee very quickly is 4 o'clock because there's that half-life. So even if you're not feeling like that effect of the caffeine, it's still circulating through your blood and going to affect your sleep. So definitely try and cut the caffeine out fairly early in the day if you are consuming it, and keep it for kind of in the morning as your main time to use it. So let's jump back to that evening routine. I know I mentioned like going for a walk after eating. Other things we can do is like having a warm bath or shower, having some tea, I don't know, sitting around the living room with dim lighting, talking with family, playing board games, all of these sorts of things. We just want to build a routine into place that doesn't include us sitting in front of a screen blasting ourselves with light, which tends to be the case this day and age. But putting a routine in so that your body starts to remember, like, hey, when I do this, that means I'm winding down for the evening. So don't change it up every night. Try and keep it pretty similar every night so that it's like every night I have my warm bath, I grab my book and tea, I read it, and then I do some meditation and gratitude journaling, and I go to bed, so that your body, after a week or so of that, it's like, hey, we're meditating again. That must mean it's just about bedtime, or whatever your routine's going to be. I'm just trying to put lots of options out there for you guys to kind of pull from, and then you build yours based on what works for best for you. So having that routine, if you're going to do the warm bath, keep in mind that our body temperature does drop in the evening in preparation for sleep. So we want the body temperature to drop down because at night our body is actually cooler than it is during the day. So if you're having a warm bath, make sure you're giving yourself probably at least an hour between the time that you're having your warm bath. By the time you're out, a full hour before you actually want to go to bed. Because your body needs to cool down from that hot bath. If you're doing a warm shower and using the heat of that shower to help you go to bed, which I'll explain in just a second here, you can do that a little bit closer as long as you keep that shower short. So heat is actually a fantastic way to prep ourselves to go to bed, because what happens is the body temperature wants to drop in the evenings. So you think about your body as both a thermostat and a room that we're actually trying to heat. If you go and have a short, warm shower, you're going to essentially be putting like a lighter under the thermostat, but not changing the temperature in the room. And then the body says it's hot because you've told the thermostat it's hot, so it cools the body. Versus when you have a hot bath, you put a little lighter under that thermostat, but you also heat up that entire room because you're in that hot environment for a long enough time that your core temperature actually rises. And that's why with a hot bath, you need to give yourself a lot longer time, or if you were to sauna or a hot tub or something, give yourself a full hour, maybe a bit more than that, to allow your body temperature to actually cool down beyond that. So it's a great tool that seems a little counterintuitive is to use heat to cool your body. But like I said, if you just kind of like have a quick warm shower, it's like heating up that thermostat but not changing the temperature in the room, and that helps that drop down because your thermostat's saying it needs to cool down. And if we have a hot bath or something longer like that, where we actually get the core temperature to rise, then we just need more time to cause that drop. So that can be an awesome way to help facilitate sleep, though, is having that warm bath or shower before you go to bed, and then you can actually use a cold shower in the morning to help you wake up earlier. So both of those will shift our circadian rhythm, which tells us when we need to be sleeping, essentially. So if you want to wake up earlier, cold shower in the morning, warm shower in the evening. And if you were to want the other way around, you could switch the timing of when you're doing the hot and the cold there. And next is just like really aim for a consistent amount of sleep every night and a consistent time. So we really want to be going to bed at the exact same time every night and waking up at the exact same time every morning, not just 5 days a week, but 7 days a week. So that includes the weekends if you're not working. That we still want to be pretty close there. So I always tell people like plus or minus a half an hour on each end of whatever time that is still a pretty good ballpark area to be in, but we don't really want to get to that like 2 to 3 hours outside of that. So when Friday night or Saturday night come around, we don't want to be staying up an extra 3 hours later and waking up 3 hours later because it just throws your body out. It's like, well, I thought we were waking up and going to bed at this time, but now we're doing it at this time. So try and keep that as consistent as possible, and that will help a ton. And lastly, you guys, is just have a really good sleep environment. So what does a good sleep environment look like? It is a super dark room with like as little light as possible. You want it to be nice and cool because like I mentioned, our body temperature drops in the night, so we want it cool in there. And then we also want it to be really quiet. So whatever you need to do to keep a nice quiet environment, do the best you can to do that. Same with the dark environment. If that means buying some blackout shades, go buy them. It is definitely worth the purchase. You will sleep so much better with that. They've done a study where they basically took a light and they were seeing how much does light affect our sleep at night and the quality of it, and even just shining a small light on the back of a person's kneecap was enough to affect their sleep. Not to say that that's going to drastically change your sleep by having a little light on the back of your knee, but the point is that it showed significance that it did make a change. So if you have a fairly well lit room, say if you live in the city and there's lots of city light coming into the room or something like that, then realize that that amount of light is going to affect the quality of your sleep. So you want to keep it nice and dark, get the blackout shades, keep it cool, keep it quiet. And if you do get up in the middle of the night and you need to use the washroom, try and minimize the amount of light that you use. Have maybe like a little night light out in the hallway or something. Have just barely enough light that you're not going to trip over anything and hurt yourself. Go to the washroom, come back, versus like flicking your bedroom light on, the hallway light on, the bathroom light on, and exposing yourself to a whole bunch of light for 5 or so minutes and then trying to go back to bed. It's going to be significantly harder. And that comes into place typically when you get a little bit older and you're getting up to go to the washroom in the middle of the night. Definitely consider that. Or even having like a super dim, one of those red light kind of flashlights, something like that, that's not going to expose you to nearly as much light. It's going to keep you from feeling like you're getting a blast of sun in the middle of the night, which would obviously wake you up. So those are the main things to help you guys sleep is like, one, basically set a timer so that you know when you're going to start your evening routine. Set an evening routine that's going to work for you. So that can be a ton of different things, but the idea is that we're winding down, we're de-stressing, and that we're trying to give ourselves some self-care time in there, and that we're getting away from the bright lights and the busy like kind of work environment, trying to get away from those stressors. Try and have a fairly light dinner, no alcohol, no caffeine later in the day. Those are going to affect your sleep. And then you can leverage the warm bath or shower. Depending on which one you do, you'll have to change the timing around that. So warm bath, hot tub, sauna, something like that. Hour and a half before bed. If you're having a warm shower, you can get away with about half an hour. Keep that shower pretty short so that you don't raise your core temperature a whole bunch. And then just having a really good sleep environment with a nice dark, cold, and quiet environment. So those are the things that are going to help you guys have a better nighttime routine. You got a ton of value out of watching that video on how to build an evening routine. Drop it in the comments for me. Give me a big thumbs up so that I know that that provided value to you and that you're going to implement those tools to have a better nighttime routine.